Tell me what your life was like before you died.
I had been out of work for a couple of months because at work I had injured my back. And 5 years prior to that, I had had a ruptured disc and a surgery on my back. And so I had tried to, recover with it, but it was another ruptured disc. And so I was facing possibly having to have a spinal fusion, or at the very least have another laminectomy. And being a physical therapist, which is a fairly heavy lifting type of a job, I was really concerned about losing my career. So I had, contacted people back where we had moved from and said, this is when I'm going to be operated on, and people that were in the church I was attending, and just lots of people, and asked them if they'd pray for me that, I would only have to have a laminectomy, could keep on being a physical therapist. So got it scheduled, and the morning, it was one of the early surgeries, one of the earliest ones in the morning. And my husband and my 2 kids came, and they got me all prepped, and they were able to walk beside the stretcher as they took me down to the operating room area. And then as we got almost to the OR suite, they were sent off to a waiting room. I was brought into the OR suite, and it was a long area of lots of ORs because it was the main trauma center, the same hospital I worked in. So anyway, I was put on my stomach because they were going to be reopening my back. And I remember them starting the anesthesia, through the IV. And then that was obviously all that I was aware of until suddenly I was aware. And my consciousness was literally like up in the upper corner of this operating room suite. And there was a great ruckus going on. The surgeon was swearing at one of the nurses and saying to go get bags of blood, and anesthesiologist was up. It was just a big ruckus. And so my attention was drawn back in that direction just in time to see them flipping my body, and they were flipping it from face down to face up. And so I realized, looking at, hey, that's me, that white-faced thing is me, and I'm up here. My consciousness is I must be dead. I have to get to my husband and my kids. I've got to let them know that somehow I'm still me. I don't understand this at all, but I've got to find them. So as soon as I started thinking that, my consciousness literally went through the wall of the OR and back out into the hallway I had come down. And then I just went down this hallway, past the other OR rooms, and there was a double set of doors, and went right through those. And then I was back out into the hallway area near where my husband and kids had been sent the other way to a waiting room. And so I tried to continue in that direction to try to figure out how to get to them. And just at that point in time, a voice telepathically spoke and said, pay attention to this man. And I realized that there was a man that was rushing toward the direction that I had just come from. And so as soon as that voice said that, it was as though I could zoom in on this guy. And so I could see his eye color and what he was wearing, and literally also could hear his thoughts. And he was thinking, I've got to get in there fast. And as he was thinking that, I heard the thoughts of another man who was closer to those double doors. And his thoughts were, what's that guy think he's doing? He can't go in there. He's not a doctor. He was just dressed regular clothes. And I heard those thoughts kind of biplaying and paid attention in that direction just in time to see the guy I had initially been told to pay attention to pause. And then as he paused, then the double doors swung open, and he went on through and into the OR suite. And once he did, I tried to think to get back to the waiting room again, but I was no longer able to keep myself going in any direction. I felt as though I was pulled. Like I've mentioned, like maybe a tractor being like I'm Star Wars or something. Literally, like I was being pulled upward, and I went up through the ceiling of that hallway and up through another floor and up through the next one, ended up out of the hospital's roof completely, up The hospital is located near the Chugach Mountains and up almost at the level of like a small planes flew all the time. And that's when I began to think, wow, I don't feel the difference in temperature out here. I don't feel any breeze or anything. And then I began being pulled in a horizontal direction and was pulled literally all the way out over the city of Anchorage. And it sits on water. And just at the point where I would have been going out over water, a big, dark, rounded, kind of looked almost like a cave opening came in front of me, and I was sucked inside of it. And once I was inside this dark tunnel-like thing, then I started going even faster, very, very fast. But again, not feeling any sensation of air or anything by me. And as I was in there, I noticed way off in the distance a really teeny tiny pinprick of light. And as I was pulled, the light got bigger and it got bigger as I was getting closer and closer to it. And then I just burst out into this full bright light. And when I did, I was just filled with this enormous feeling of peace and of love, so much love, and just comfort, and just so many words that you really can't even put it into words, but just enormous enveloping love. And as I did, I thought, well, where am I? And looked where my feet should be, and of course no feet, but did see like a brown rocky ground below me. And the whole landscape was very arid looking. And my first thought was, well, this isn't what I would think heaven would be like. And then I heard the telepathic voice again and said, follow me. And it was from off to my left. And as I looked off to my left, I saw a man was climbing up a slope. And as he was heading up this slope, and as I heard that voice, I was immediately like only about a few feet behind him and going up. And so I'm looking at the back of this guy, which was all I could see. And his hair was almost black and pulled back and was tied with a piece of leather. And his clothing was just like a mid-thigh length, very plain off-white linen type thing, another tie around his waist. And on his feet, he had sandals, but they were sandals where there were ties that crisscrossed up his calves and tied like right below the knee. And so my immediate thought again was, well, that's not Jesus. I don't know who it is, but I'm pretty sure that can't be Jesus. But followed him, and felt from him a feeling as though he knew me. I should know him. Very comfortable, very welcoming. So I wasn't fearful at all. I just was uncertain, not seeing things I expected to see, I guess, if I was dead. And as we came up over the slope, the entire landscape changed, and it became very lush and green. Everything was very green, and flowers studding this whole field. And then off in the distance, trees, beautiful trees. And as I looked at everything, I realized that the light that I had burst into wasn't just there where I burst into it. It was literally inside everything I was looking at and being radiated out. So there were gorgeous flowers that were radiating this light, and the trees and the leaves. And so I was kind of mesmerized. And the guy, I started calling him my guide, and he had gone on ahead, and his telepathic voice again said, follow me. And so I was immediately up behind him again. And at this point, he was on the bank of a river. And the river had this gorgeous, glistening diamond luster to it. And I thought, Bible verse again, I thought, living waters. Then right across on the opposite bank of the river, I saw my father and my brother and aunts and uncles who had died, and other relatives that I knew had died. And with them, I even saw 4 people that I didn't recognize, but I just knew that they were my 4 grandparents that had all died before I was born. And all of them were just like welcoming and like, oh, wow, she's here. Isn't this wonderful? She's here. And, I wanted to go there so badly, but my guide, who was the one who was steering me everywhere, said, you have to go somewhere else first. You have to go with me. And so again, I'm following him, and he goes further along the bank of the river, and then it winds around. And when it wound around, then it opened up into a huge area where in the center of it was this gorgeous building that was like a pearlescent white. I mean, it like everything else was glowing. And then I began to see other individuals, people, I call them spiritual people, and they were there outside this building, coming down the stairs of it. And it had huge stairs leading all the way up. And it reminded me of Roman or Greek because there were huge white columns in front too, and big, enormous door. And my guide had gone up to the door, and I followed up too behind him. And as he approached it and the doors opened, we were into an entirely huge, long room that had tables all down through the center of it. And on either side, as far up as you could see, were all of these shelves of books and old scrolls, and like an enormous library. And the only comment that my guide made to me as we walked into it and past the tables was, "This is where the Book of Lives is stored." But that's not where we're staying. We're going to another place. We continued all the way through and into a hallway, and then into another small room. And once we were in this smaller room, there were all these other spiritual beings surrounding what was like you would think a conference table or something, as though they were waiting for us to be there. Once we were there, he said, "We're going to review your life up to this point." So the center of the conference table area looked almost like it was clear, like you would think with a glass bottom boat or something. But as he said that, it turned into like a hologram and began showing everything that had happened in my life. And I was able to experience myself going through all of these different events in my life and interacting with the other people I was interacting with, and also being able to be them or feel as though I was them. The main things I was being shown were things where either I had hurt someone by my actions or words, or had helped someone. Both types of events were shown to me, and I was able to really feel the pain that someone else had experienced, or the good that they carried away from our interaction and rippled out toward all of the people that they then interacted with. So that was such an impactful feeling. It's very emotional. And of course, I saw all these places where I thought I could have done better than that. I shouldn't have done this. So I saw these things. And then there's something else I know happened, but I don't remember. It's been blocked from my memory because the next thing I'm aware of, I was no longer in that room with all of them. I was in a totally different, smaller yacht room with just my guide. And he said, "Before you decide whether you're going back to your life or staying here, I want to show you some things." First, he showed me off to my right side. He said, "I want you to see the prayers of all the people that you asked to pray for you." And how he showed them to me, they looked like musical notes on a score. And I wasn't hearing the sound of the prayers or hearing anything. I was just seeing each musical note hooking one to another, another to another, and reaching upward. And he said, every prayer has its own unique vibration. Then as they were coming closer, he said, "I also want to show you this." And off to my left, it was as though I was looking through the ceiling of the waiting room that my husband and the kids were in. And the doctor who had operated on me was in the doorway of the waiting room. My husband was standing near him and talking to him, and the kids were on like a little couch behind. I was able to hear my daughter praying that I would live, because when she saw the doctor, she had thought that it had been a long time that they had been there waiting, longer than they were told they would. When that prayer, her prayer, was added to the other prayers, that's when I suddenly felt all of my emotions rush back into me of being human, being Karen, being mom and wife, and all of that. And I said, "Oh, I have to go back." So I had made the decision. And my guide said to me, "Well, as long as you're going back, you will have proof that this all really truly happened. But you will not be able to remember the things we showed you about your future, because if you did, you no longer would be operating under free will. So the next thing I became aware of was waking up in a recovery room with my husband and my kids on either side. And instantly I was filled with this huge peace and love that I had felt the whole time I had been experiencing this, and instant memory of everything that had happened. And at the same time, my bodily consciousness was trying to make sense of what had happened to me. Living a good life is always looking for the best, most enjoyable thing in every day and really absorbing it as much as you can. And also always be looking for how you can make someone else's life and day a little bit better. And it doesn't have to be a major thing. It doesn't need to be some save the world project type of thing. It's who comes in front of you, who you are introduced to and exposed to, and how you interact with them to show them the kindness and the love.